Somebody called me gay at the age of 10.
Mm-hmm.
He's dead now.
He ain't around anymore. He's dead. He's goddamn dead.
All right, Mark, we're live.
What?
Yep.
You didn't even give me a chance to prep and stuff. I was supposed to. You know, there's something I forgot to mention. I've been forgetting to mention this on this podcast, and I've been saying that I was going to mention it all the time, and then I stopped mentioning it all the time, and I stopped mentioning it a bunch because it just happens so much. But no one ever talks about getting laid, and I think people should. So I got some this morning. Yeah, that's all I got to say. That's it. I just got to get
coffee,
it out there.
They say.
Yeah, my old lady, she does her job. You know, I know it's weird for these guys to hear because that's their boss figure there. But you know, my advice to the women out there: if you don't want your guys scrolling and you don't want your guys checking through and sliding into other people's DMs, then do your work. Make your guy tired.
So we're about to have the best podcast ever.
Yeah, we're about to have the best podcast ever. Make your guy so tired that he doesn't have enough strength to do this. Fucking literally suck the life out of him.
The problem is when you get laid first thing in the morning, then you have no motivation for the rest of the day.
I got nothing.
I accomplished everything that I need in my life, and now
that's all we're supposed to do.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's what we're here to reproduce and
game
in the morning. So
Mark's gonna go take a nap.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might be the worst podcast ever.
Yeah, you never know. Might snooze right through it.
Yeah, because you're like Tim is. I don't really fucking care anymore. Yeah. Whatever. I got laid. I'm done for the day.
Matt, you said that you might have some questions for me, so feel free to fire them out as we go. If something pops up in your head, you don't have to feel like you're on the hot seat for questions all the time, but you can throw some my way if you want. So just go for it whenever the mood hits you.
Who's your favorite guest you've ever had on the podcast? You've had some great guests.
Yeah. We've had a lot of really great guests. I've always liked Ed Cohn a lot. He's been like an idol of mine, strongest powerlifter that ever lived, in my opinion.
In your opinion?
Yeah.
It's objective, right?
Yeah, I think it's maybe it's everybody's opinion. I don't know. He was a strong bastard.
Is it powerlifting objective though? Right? It's not really.
Yeah, I think so.
Like either you lifted more weight than that guy or not, right?
Well, there's weight classes, you know.
Yeah.
There's always the weight class thing, just like you guys have. Who's the best? I don't know.
Yeah. So you said strongest or best, all right?
Yeah, I mean he
could be the best, but not necessarily strongest, right?
Yeah, he was both.
Okay.
he was kind of both.
What about Dave Hoff?
I haven't had Dave Hoff on the podcast, but Dave Hoff is a bad mamma jamma for sure. He's dominated the sport for a long time. I do think that Dave Hoff would have had a hard time continuing his victories if the guy from Big Iron Gym didn't die, Rick Husey. He was a great coach and mentor to Sean Frankel. And Sean Frankel, I don't know how much you remember of powerlifting before you got into going to Westside Barbell, but Sean Frankel was very, very dominant, and he was a lighter weight class, so he was hard to beat at some of those cash meets, and he used to beat up on a young Dave Hoff. But it would have been great to see those two battle had that rivalry kind of continued. But yeah, Dave Hoff is unbelievable. I think Dave Hoff has benched like over 1,000 pounds. He's squatted over 1,200 pounds. Some of it's been controversial. I think he's done.
His 1,200 pound squat was really controversial, right?
Yeah, I think he's done like a 3,010 total or something. He's got the
highest total in history, right?
I think he still has the highest total.
Yeah.
I think he still has the highest total. I mean, you know, the thing that that unfortunately gets lost when there's controversy like that is just how good people are. And the same thing happens in fighting, right? Like somebody gets nabbed because they took a performance-enhancing drug, or somebody, you know, who knows what the hell. These fighters get into all kinds of different things, and all kinds of different things happen. But sometimes people lose sight of, hey, these are real-world people with some problems, with some issues, and a lot of these guys are going to sometimes, in the UFC, you're not supposed to take performance-enhancing drugs, but even guys that fight for a living and learn different ways to destroy each other, still have insecurities and still think they need to reach for something that maybe the other guy is not taking, right? Sometimes it just, I think people lose sight of the fact that it's a sport, it's a competition, and how can people not get caught up in some of that shit sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And a lot of that's where our identity gets based on what we do in competition. And that's something I personally struggled with for a long time. I don't know if I struggled, but getting away from that, I struggled with because the losses would hurt so bad because that's who I was. And I was like, you feel very insecure and like you're nothing and you're not for weeks or months at a time. Like, I couldn't even face people because I lost, and then once I had kids, that actually is probably what helped me the most, learning, I can't be that person. I have to be more well-rounded, and I can't my identity can't be just who I am in the octagon because you're going to lose no matter what.
It's really rare for anybody to be undefeated.
Yeah, extremely rare.
I mean, Mighty Mouse Johnson, I would say, is
he lost one.
Yeah, he's kind of the cream of the crop right now. Wouldn't you kind of say, like, with the amount of victories he's had, the streak he's been on as a champion and stuff. But yeah, he's got a loss. He might have more than one loss.
It's so debatable, right? That's where fighting is a lot more subjective, right? Because the tough part is his competition has clearly not been what like GSP's was or what John Jones was or
Yeah, what does he weigh? 130?
125 is his weight class, and
125 pounds.
Yeah, and he's not even like I would say he's small or optimal size for that weight class.
Yeah,
a lot of the guys in that weight are a lot bigger than him for sure, cutting a lot more weight than him. He doesn't have a hard weight cut to make 125. So when he did lose, which was the Dominic Cruz at 135. I mean, he was outsized on top of, fighting a world-class guy.
Yeah, and Dominic Cruz is a great fighter, in his own right. Mm-hmm. The competition level of the UFC has risen quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And Joe Rogan, I think, has been an integral part of teaching and expanding, like, because of the way that he announces the fights. A lot of times people wouldn't even know what people were doing on the ground. They used to boo it, right? And then he would explain, like, what was actually happening, what was transpiring, and then people got more into it. People got more excited about people being able to reverse moves. And what's your favorite, like, obviously you're a huge fan of some of the brawls, but what's your favorite technical bout that you've ever seen?
Ooh, technical bout.
Where you're just like, fuck, man, these guys are just going back and forth and being able to reverse each other's shit and all that kind of stuff.
That's a good question. Boy, I'd probably have to think about that, to be honest.
Got to dig deep into the archives. How about your favorite fight, period?
Gosh, there's so many of them. Even for that, you just switched my mind completely around. I hate. I mean, I'd have to say like some of my own fights, but. I guess that's kind of where I'm at these days is I pay so little attention to what other people do anymore. I think it's a mistake that I'd made in the past was watching what they do. Like now I'm injured. I'm out for probably like a year. I've really turned the focus inward a lot more where now I've probably watched my highlight video 30, 40 times. I mean, I have 5 or 10 of them on YouTube. So I've watched each of them and I'm constantly watching it over and over and reminding myself how good I really am. And I want that to be those highlights. I want to be my consistent performances and not just highlights.
Right. Yeah, and you trained at Westside Barbell. Like, that's kind of unconventional for MMA. I mean, even there's some people in MMA that don't really – I mean, I know more people are getting into weights, but there's some guys that still – don't really have a lot of value on strength training and things like that. What has that done for you going to Westside Barbell?
Well, it certainly fixed a lot of weaknesses that I had, and I was strength trained long before that too. I mean, I've been part of strength training.
So you're already bought into it.
Yeah. I mean, I was a personal trainer before I was even in the UFC, and I was doing circuits before they were cool, so to speak, like around 2001 or 2 or whatever.
Right.
but yeah, I believe in strength. So, like the technique, I've always believed is one thing that is a time thing. Like technique is just only going to come with time. No matter how much, um, you practice it, it's only going to be a time thing, right?
Right.
You can only do so many reps in a day, right? I can only throw a jab so many times. My body, my mind's only going to absorb so much. With the strength training, of course, that's a time thing too, but it's something that I can control very objectively, and I can see the improvement, and I can, um, I can translate that directly into, performance, and of course, injury prevention
Yeah.
and things like that.
Do you think some fighters lose sight of the fact that it's an actual fight? Sometimes things get a little too technical.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you probably have to give a specific example to
Yeah.
get deeper into that, but
Sometimes, sometimes you just don't always see the aggression in it, and that could be for a number of reasons. Like maybe the guy just got clipped with something that you didn't like when you watch it on TV. You're not able to see all the nuances, and I've never been inside the cage, so I don't know what it's like. But I would imagine that, like kind of that saying that Mike Tyson has, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face type thing.
that's certainly one part. But then there's also, I mean, I've always said, cage fighting. The most beautiful thing about cage fighting, the thing that I love the most about it, is it's really just an expression of ourselves when we get in that cage. And you see a lot of guys are, they're safer personalities or softer personalities, and it doesn't necessarily make them a bad fighter, but that's how they end up fighting in the cage. And that doesn't mean they're going to fight like that every single time. But you fight long enough and you fight often enough, then eventually you're going to see who you truly are. And that's the first thing I always tell any amateur that ever wants to fight me, or hopefully they don't want to fight me because they're getting their ass kicked, but any amateur that asks me for advice on how to, be a great fighter or whatever, and the first thing I tell them is know yourself, know who you are, because you better be very secure with that person. It's because eventually, if you decide to make a career out of this and you do it often enough, that person's gonna be exposed in front of millions of people.
Yeah, we had Jay Cutler on the podcast yesterday, and he mentioned the same exact thing. You go out in front of people, and you're gonna pose, and if you're not confident in yourself, you're not confident the way you look and the shape that you're in, everyone's gonna see it. You're gonna be exposed in front of everybody, and they're gonna know that that you're not as confident in yourself as you probably should be.
Yeah, and that again, a very objective sport like that, they're gonna see. He slacked off on his lats or he slacked off on his training. Here, they see exactly what you put in and what came out of it. And what we do is more of an art form, right? That's why they call it martial arts. And when you're expressing your art, it's more of the depth of who you are as a person that really gets exposed. And again, I think a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. They're not secure with themselves, or they're not confident in themselves. Maybe they don't have pride. They're not proud of themselves. There's certain things that they're maybe just not. They weaknesses that they just don't want other people to see. But now you're in the wrong sport, because eventually it's going to get seen. And this is where you see a lot of guys. I don't know how many guys I've heard like, oh, I just want to get one fight in the UFC. Well, that's because they don't want to get exposed. They don't want people to see who they really are. They want people to see that they got to the UFC, but they don't want people to see who they truly are, which is when you see someone like, I think that's where a lot of the pressure comes from. When you see someone like a GSP, where he talks a lot, just listened to him on Rogan the other day, where he talked a lot about the pressure that was on him all the time.
Right.
A lot of that pressure is because people see deep inside your soul every time you're in that cage. And that's something hard to deal with. Not easy for anybody.
Yeah, he stepped away from it for a little bit. You mentioned identity, and you mentioned trying to not have the fighting define you too much. But it's everywhere, though. It's it's all over TV. People talk about it all the time, and the second that someone knows that you're a UFC fighter, they're going to ask you about this fight. It's all over social media. You see it everywhere. So how do you kind of avoid it, I guess?
Well, I don't avoid it. I mean, I embrace it. What I'm getting at is like when like we're all going to lose at some point, right? But that doesn't mean that you're a loser, right? And we're going to have our failures and our struggles, and that doesn't mean that you're a
Sounds
weak
like
person.
a loser's mentality, to be honest with you. If I'm just being honest. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, damn it. Just fucked up my whole speech. Yeah, so, I mean, that's what, what they always say, you don't, failure is really accepting the defeat, right? So, it's something, yeah, I mean, I can't say it better. You're not a loser because you lost.
Right.
You're just, I'm sure it's the same powerlifting, right? Like, you missed a lift. That doesn't mean you're a weak person.
Right.
Right. Like you're still, that means that you did something wrong along the way. You found one wrong way, and now you got to get back on the horse, dust yourself off, jump back on, and let's figure out the right way this time.
How do you build confidence? You were mentioning confidence as well. So what's a way for Matt Brown? How did you build confidence in the beginning? Now it's kind of different. You kind of have a snowball effect. It's a little easier to ride the momentum, but when you were younger.
I don't think it gets any easier. I would argue that for sure, because the problem, a lot of people say, like, man, you've had so many fights, it must feel like second nature by now. But the truth of the matter is, the more fights you have, the tougher the guys you fight too.
Yeah,
so it doesn't get any easier by any means. It only gets harder. But the confidence really comes from the training, number one, and number two. I guess kind of like I guess we were talking about yesterday. I talk about having a direction and knowing where you want to go and knowing why you want to get there. When you have all these things in line and you have everything, your mind very clear on your path, then you don't even have to worry about things like motivation and discipline and things like that. They just come naturally.
Where'd the nickname the Immortal come from?
Oh, well, that was well, as most people know, I died from a heroin overdose, and I was brought back.
What do you mean you died?
Well, I guess it's sort of.
I don't think anybody else in this room knows what it's like to die, and people listening.
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of subjective. Like the doctors told me, or the nurse or whatever told me that, I was probably dead. They didn't say like, they weren't like checking my heart, like, oh, he's dead, bring him back, right? But they were like, you're pretty close, right?
Did you feel anything? Anything happen in particular to you, like that you remember that?
There's two things I remember.
Grim Reaper showed up.
The two things I remember was I was hallucinating. I remember like my friend was driving me to the hospital because she could tell that I was just too far. But I remember just being so happy and kind of floating along, and I think I was sort of hallucinating. And then I remember being in a lot of pain. Like I remember, because I guess they shot me with a Narcan or whatever, and I just remember being in a lot of pain. I was like, holy shit, and my whole body just hurting real bad. And I said, the nurses told me, you're pretty much on your way out, and you probably would have been dead if you hadn't been brought.
What were you dying from?
The heroin.
It was from an overdose.
Yeah. So and I'd only done heroin maybe 5 to 10 times at most. Like I wasn't like an addict or anything, but what I've been told was probably what happened, because I probably did the same dose I'd done the other times, but it was probably just a more potent product at the same dose. Because it's not like we were going to professional doctors and getting. Real
were you into a lot of other drugs?
Yeah. So
at that time?
Yeah. The heroin was kind of. I don't know, secondary. Like I wasn't really into downer so much as like meth and coke and stuff like that. I was addicted to meth. Was probably the only like truly hardcore addiction.
How did some of that happen? Is that are you byproduct of your environment somewhat? Like did you kind of run with the wrong crowd and there's other people doing it in your area and stuff? Because you said you grew up in a really small town in Ohio, right?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of all the above. I think there was a lot of different things. Gosh, so many things. Growing up in a very small town and just not really having that direction. That's why I talk about the direction so much. Like that's how people get off the path so much. They don't know where they're going and don't know. I had no idea. I guess so this is what, the way I always like to say is like I was trying to find myself, and I hate that term because when you're trying to find yourself, that road could take you anywhere, right? That's why I always say stop trying to find yourself and start to define yourself. So rather than so you can live your life by design. You don't have to go searching for yourself, and that could take you down any crazy path. And I think that's really what was happening with me because as I was searching for myself, so to speak, I found a lot of fucking troubled people that I related to, and it just one thing led to another, and more than anything, I would chalk it up to being naive and not really understanding how severe the problem was. Thinking, I'll just play around with it. I'll try. Oh, that was fun. Let's do it again. Rather than, like this is some serious shit. That could, not understanding how severe it can truly be, which I think you understand pretty well. And it wasn't that I was brought up like in a lot of people I see that end up in these sort of situations. They come from very, very bad situations to start with, very bad homes. I didn't have that. I mean, maybe I was abused some, maybe I was bullied, and maybe there was problems, but it wasn't anything that I shouldn't have been able to overcome as just a strong human being. But I was a weak person, and that was my escape, and that was my way to kind of say fuck you to the world.
Would you say that getting addicted to drugs was your fault, or would you say it's half your fault, half maybe not your fault?
I don't like placing blame on anyone for anything in my life other than myself.
Yeah, so you just take complete control, complete blame over it.
Yeah.
How were you able to get yourself out of any of that? I mean, nearly died from heroin. You were on cocaine. You were on crystal meth.
Well, meth was the only one that was really hard to get away from, and I went to jail, and that was how I got out of that addiction.
Jail sobered you up.
It did, 100%. Yeah. And, and I just got out of jail realizing, like, damn, like, I was addicted to that shit. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize how much I was doing it and didn't realize how much I needed it. Went to jail and, was just fucking, my mind going crazy about it. I wasn't having like shakes or anything like that or cold sweats or anything, but I mean, I was certainly, just geeking for it all the time, and it was really, damaging my mind, but it only lasted for probably about a week. And then I was fine and was able to get over it. And I just walked out of jail saying, I'm just not going to go down that road again. The heroin, I think I was really pretty lucky with that because I was such a fucking dumb young kid. It's unreal how dumb I was when I look back, because I remember leaving the hospital, like nobody was even there to pick me up or anything. And I leave and I'm walking around and I'm like, man, I want to go get shit faced, but I was like, I'm not doing that shit again, and that was
you nearly died, and no one came.
No,
and no one came.
I walked out,
and
of my
no
own
one
power.
came when you were. And how old are you?
22.
Why didn't anybody come?
I didn't have any friends.
Yeah, so maybe the people that you were like running with that you thought were your boys and stuff like that, maybe.
No, absolutely were not my friends.
Yeah.
And
what about your parents?
I could not call my parents. My parents didn't even find out about that. Well, my dad passed away, so he never even heard about it. My mom says that he did know about it, but I never told him, and they never brought it up to me.
You saw it be too painful to tell your parents or something?
Of course, yeah. I didn't want them to know how deep I really was in that world, and I think that was sort of a.
They didn't know you were in jail either?
No, they knew I was in jail.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'd call them from jail, like,
yeah.
Hey guys, I'm lonely.
Yeah,
Come on, someone talk to me.
I've gotten some phone calls from there before.
Yeah. I would say that's sort of, that was certainly a problem in my family. And I haven't really talked about this or brought it up much, but when I look back, that was certainly the way that I was raised. It wasn't really, there wasn't really a lot of communication. It was, and I think that probably would have went a long way to making me feel more comfortable with my family. But I was really disengaged with my family.
Just communication in general.
In general, yeah, because it was, I just had come from a very conservative, small town family, and they were like, my dad was very blunt and straightforward, and it wasn't like, oh, you have a problem, we should try to fix it. It's like, fuck your problem,
Right.
like be a man, right? And yeah, I mean, I certainly carry some of that with me today, but I try to be a little bit more intelligent about it. But is that the old school like 50s style, like he thought he was going to beat it out of me, and a lot of stuff just made me want to do it worse, and that was probably what led me down that road. And I think communication in my younger days probably. I mean, again, I only like to blame it on myself, but I at least when I do it with my own kids, I try to implement that more. And then like, look, I'm going to talk to you about whatever your problem is, and hopefully that keeps them away from the roads that I went down.
Your parents, they didn't really know much about the drug situation.
I think they knew because I was in a small town.
Yeah.
So they heard.
They just didn't know how deep.
Yeah, well, for one, they may not have known how deep, but they certainly didn't know how to handle it. Again, my dad was just, he just basically just disowned me more or less.
Right.
What
do you think would happen? Like, I think a lot of times these barriers, and I don't know your parents, but I think a lot of times these barriers are kind of made up in some way. Like, you think if you went to your parents and said, I'm hooked on drugs really bad, I really need help, or I'm going to die or end up in jail, you think they would turn their back on you?
Well, the problem is I actually did come to them more than once like that, and then I fucked them.
Yeah.
So I would use that, I would use that. Now this was, I'm talking before I guess I was really that deep. By the time I'm like 19, 20, they're like, look, you're on your own now.
Right.
We did all we could. But when I was, 14, 15, I was kind of like, maybe scared to talk to them about it too much. But I'm like, look, I'd run away from home, whatever, come back a few days later and be like, hey, I have these problems.
Right.
These people want to do this and this. And they're like, well, okay, we'll help you. And then I go do the same thing next week.
Right.
And it was basically, again, it's because, again, I hate blaming on anyone but myself. It was certainly me, but their way of handling it wasn't really helpful to me. Their way of handling it was kind of the hard ass way,
right?
The 1950s style. I mean,
right. Yeah, the reason why all these things are so important to like uncover and to understand is because everyone comes from a different spot, and people are really hungry to figure out, how can I be successful? How can I be an entrepreneur? How can I make money? Or how can I be happy, right? And it's like, well, I can't fucking tell you any of those things. I don't know where you're coming from. If I don't, because everyone has a different starting point. And I've learned that probably through the gym more so than anything, because sometimes you have somebody come through and they'll go to deadlift 135 pounds and they shake and they're out of control and they can't figure out a way to, you can just undo that a little bit and you'll be able to adjust that upward. It might take you a second, but that's okay. But we'll see people that will be incredibly weak sometimes. We'll have other people that come in off the street, and for whatever reason, that person's just gifted. They're stronger than shit. They got good genetics, and we're all just starting out in different spots.
For sure.
And I think it's really important for people to understand, because I can't, I or you can't really give somebody like a recipe and say, hey, man, this is going to help you in this way. You can give general stuff, but you can't really give like a full-on
That's
recipe.
what I say. I do think there, the saying, principles are few, methods are many, right? So we may not be able to prescribe a method to them, but the principles they can still abide by. And the first key principle, I think, is that your past does not have to be indicative of your future, and that's something I had to teach myself, because coming from a small town and just my whole history as a whole, I had to tell myself, like, that doesn't have to be who I'm going to be in the future just because that's what I did in the past. And I can really change this. And that was, when I found the martial arts and I found combat sports and fighting, if I would have based it off of where I came from, then I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today. But again, that's where I go back to it all the time, having direction. And direction may be hard for some people to find, something that gives them the motivation. And
But you need to find something, right? Like you
yeah,
need to, you know, you have to have you have to have some sort of activity, I believe. Like I don't think
exactly.
if there's not an activity, I don't think you can pull yourself from the depths of some of the places that you pulled yourself from, whether that's you like to write or paint or read or hike, or like it just doesn't really matter what it is, right? It
That's
just has
exactly
to be
right.
something that you love.
That's exactly right. And finding that again, can be difficult. But I think people try to overcomplicate that too. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of people, we're kind of taught by society, and I think it's changing a lot. But like how I was taught, like this is what you're gonna be, and I was like, fuck that, I just don't want to be that. I don't be anything else except for that. And I think there's a lot of that where there's sort of we feel limited, and they're kind of pigeonholed, and you have to be this, or you have to be this, or you have to be this. You have to go to college, or you have to do. I think it's I think that kind of paradigm is shifting where, especially with the social media and everything. Now we see how big the world really is, and how many we see people. Like there's people that make a living off traveling, or like hiking or something, right? Like you can really do whatever you want. So, all you gotta do is say, look, this is what I want to do. And then be after that, you can pave the road. And so that's like, the four, there's always like four pieces to every life that I always put together in my own head. And this is kind of how I describe it, is like, you have to have a direction that's your GPS. So like, your end goal, like beginning with the end in mind. You have the road that you take to get there. Then you have the driver, and you have the car. The driver is the mind, and the car is the body. The road you can build yourself, but you have to have that end goal. Otherwise, like, it doesn't matter how fast your car is, it doesn't matter how good the driver is. If you don't know where you're going, who knows where you're going to go?
When you were coming out of this situation and sobering up and trying to change your life, and even having a near death experience, are you somebody that believes in God?
No.
Did you maybe lose faith somewhere along the way, or you never believed in God? Period.
I was brought up in a very ultra Christian home. Went to church at least once a week, maybe more. But even as a teenager, I was already questioning it, and I think that's just the logical side of me. Um, and I don't have anything against. I totally understand when people believe in a God or whatever it is that they believe in. I just like for them to accept that it is a belief, right? Like, and
Right.
a belief doesn't make anything true. So feel free to believe whatever you want. I'm just the type of person, just knowing myself, I don't believe in anything. I'm a very objective, pragmatic person, and I'm just like, so, I just look at it like, I don't care what anybody believes. I'm just I try to just see exactly what is.
What attracted you to fighting?
Oh man, now you're getting real deep. Huh? The fact that I could die in there. So actually, before I even got into combat sports, I tried to join the military. So this was like I can't remember if this was before or after the overdose. So you try to put all the
Yeah.
life together. It was like 15, 17 years ago. But either way, yeah, it was, when the 9/11 happened, I went straight down to the recruiting
Really?
office. Yeah, shortly after. I mean, within the week, and I said, give me a fucking M16, put me on the front lines, let's go. And I don't know I don't know, what's so crazy about me that attracted me. Like I always loved the idea of,
Matt Brown with an M16. I'm getting the fuck out of this building.
that was like literally exactly what I said to him, but my criminal record wouldn't allow me at the time because I
That
had
should make them want to have you go over there more.
I know, right? Well, they
Like, you're crazy. You can't. And then they should be like, oh yeah, you're crazy. Perfect. Check.
right. I did about 6 months of trying to get in the military. I remember it was a very, very down point in my life when they finally turned me down because I had DUIs. I think the final straw was remember Special K, the rave drug. I got busted with that. So I think that was the final straw, 'cause that was sort of, it was a controlled substance at
What
that
was
time.
what was your favorite drug?
Cocaine by far, or meth.
What did that do? What did that do to you? I have no experience with any of that stuff.
With the uppers. God, what does it do to you? How do you explain that? I mean, just euphoric as a motherfucker, you know? I mean, just, you know, you have the energy to do anything. I feel like, oh, you feel immortal.
Yeah,
You know? I mean, that's really how you feel. Like, you could literally do anything. You could kill anybody for anything. You know, like, you're unstoppable. That's how I feel.
You did end up in the military, though, right?
No.
No, okay.
No, they turned me down.
And then what started to happen after that?
Yeah, you know, I remember being the recruiting. Like, I had to write letters for 6 months. Like, I mean, I did everything I could, and that was actually, I ended up going to jail right after that too, because yeah, okay, now I remember. So yeah, so I got turned down from the military, and I was still on probation, and I was about to be getting off probation, which was going to be like when they were going to let me go in the military. And I think I just kind of partied for a little while, and then I got my probation got revoked, and that's when I got sentenced. That was the longest that I ever did in jail. I did. Well, it's kind of funny. I got sentenced to 6 months, and then like 3.5, 4 months in, they called me and they said, "Matt Brown, pack your bags." I was like, "What? All right, cool." And the next day, we didn't have cell phones back then, so the next day I called my probation officer from a payphone. I said, "Hey, am I still on probation? Because, you know, I didn't serve out my whole sentence." She's like, "Well, according to my computer here, you're still in jail." She's like, "You need to see the judge." So the next day I went and seen the judge, and the judge was like, "Oh yeah, we messed up, but since you came to us, we're gonna let you go." So
cool.
I got lucky. So,
Honor policy.
yeah.
Did you have like a mentor? Or was there anything or anyone that helped pull you out of it? Like, did
Nope.
you get attracted to fighting at that time and you got motivated and you started exercising, or was there anything that in
Nope.
particular other than you just saying, "I'm not going back and doing that shit"?
If anything, I had bad mentors. Again, I defined my own path, and I set my own path, and I said, "There's nothing that's going to stop me, and I'm either going to die doing this, or I'm going to succeed doing it." And fortunately, I've done pretty well.
And you weren't successful getting into the military, and then what was the transition after that? Like, how'd you find fighting, or was that before that?
Well, the fighting, yeah, was certainly after that. I went to a fight. I just signed up. I think I was telling you a story yesterday, so people can watch the interview if you want to hear the whole story. I'll shorten it up here. You know, I just signed up and fought that night. I was on coke, and I ended up winning. And then one thing led to another, and I was like,
Yeah, didn't you mention that? We can retell the story here because it's on two different like YouTube channels. It's sort of weird,
Okay.
but
You can get into more depth on here, you know, if you want.
yeah.
Okay.
But basically, you went to a fight, and you weren't scheduled to fight though, right?
No.
You just went with a friend.
Yeah, I just went to watch, and like we were doing coke and stuff before we even went, you know, and his name was Fat Joe, and I think he was.
I wonder if he's related to Fat Dan.
Either that or he's a rapper now. I'm just joking.
Okay, so yeah, so I go to the fight, and I think he was supposed to fight Wes Sims that day, and I think Wes was the one that didn't show up. I don't remember exactly.
Was Fat Joe a pretty good fighter?
No. He's pretty fat. Like more than Big
He'd
Country.
be a good power lifter. Okay.
Probably would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So I get there, and again, you know, it was like something you'd see in the movies. I mean, there's people there betting and smoking cigars, and there wasn't an athletic commission back then, and so you know, the guy's like, "Hey man," I was like, "Hey man, how'd you sign up? How does that work?" And he's like, "Well, you just go over there and you pay him $30 and you sign up." So I just went over and I was like, "How do we do this?" And he's like, "Well, we need someone to fight the champion. You want to fight the champion?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll fuck that champion." All right. And
And
yeah,
how much fighting experience did you have prior to this?
only in the streets.
Okay.
Yeah, just, you know, whatever kind of.
So no training or anything like official?
No, I mean, like we did like some backyard training. I watched the Ken Shamrock DVD, which I actually did. Like I'd sit there and we'd have these parties, and and we'd watch UFC and Pride and stuff. And then one time a guy brought over the Ken Shamrock DVD. We put it in, or it's probably a VHS back then actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we would sit there on the floor and actually practice like heel hooks and stuff. And I mean, I had no idea about anything, but yeah. So and like I was that guy. A lot of times, I mean, I always like wanted to be in shape. I didn't really understand it, but so I would get. That's one thing I always liked about coke and meth. Meth specifically was, I would take that and be drunker than shit, and I would just go run for a mile, 2 miles, go do push-ups, stuff on the bike trails or the streets and stuff that I run, and I'd come back and
Exercise in a bottle.
exactly, yeah, and I'd come back, and a lot of times, I'd be pumped up because I was kind of always like watching my back, right? Because these people that I was hanging out with, I knew how they were. They were always trying to rip you off and stuff, so I'd make sure that at least in my mind, that I was, getting in shape and being strong, and because I always knew a fight could happen any minute. Like we all love fighting, small town hillbilly guys, right? And a lot of times, yeah, I'd come back and and we would fight, and I'd be pumped up and ready to fight, and that was a pretty common story. And you never know if you come back and dude's messing with your girl, whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's such a common story, right? So anyway, yeah. So I signed up, paid the $30, and walked down the street, bought a mouthpiece and a cup. Come back. There's a restaurant across the street. I use their microwave to boil the mouthpiece. Come back to the fight.
This is all logical thought for you. You're like, I got to sign up for this fight and walk into the restaurant. Hey, can I use your microwave?
It was very logical to me at the time, surprisingly.
Yeah. What did they say when you walked in? Like, hey, can I borrow a microwave?
Yeah, I don't remember, but I mean, I don't remember specifically what they said, but I don't.
Like, man, that guy sure is pacing back and forth really fast.
Yeah. I don't remember them. I don't remember them thinking it was strange or anything.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's like, oh, safety first. I got to get this mouthpiece to fight a champion, even though I've never fought.
Yeah, pretty much.
I got to protect.
Well, come find out later, he was tough man champion. Was why they were calling him champion. He I guess he wasn't really the champion of that, but he'd won the tough man competition. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people like we did around there. You remember the tough mans? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were doing that, and that was kind of like who's the toughest man in town, right? That's how we would gauge.
I've actually competed in that before, and I was on like whatever channel it was on. It was on FX, and they did pro football players against professional wrestlers, which it was like all just like, it was all second rate. Pro football players and second rate professional wrestlers, of course, but
it's like almost like a celebrity boxing match, right?
Yeah. They had the Honky Tonk Man was our like coach.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you remember
he was second rate, right? He was like
he didn't fight, but
okay.
What happened was my team we won more fights, and so I won my fight, and a couple other guys won their fight, and then we just picked a guy to like fight in the championship round. But it was fun. I fought in the Joe Louis Arena in front of like 5,000 people. Nice. It was pretty cool, and I was able to knock my guy out, knocked him out of the ring. Nice. It was funny.
Detroit, right?
Yeah.
Joe Louis Arena. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really weird experience. I just remember like when I watch any sort of fights on TV, when somebody can kind of like go for the kill, I'm always like, this guy's a pussy. Why doesn't he just go for it? And that's all I could think about in this fight because I started to get really tired, even though it was like a 3-round. I think it was I think it was only like a minute each round. So it was absolutely pathetic. But
just get gassed throwing haymakers.
But yeah, I was like, fuck it, I got to go all in, and I ended up knocking the guy out of the ring, and it was cool.
What year was that?
It was it had to be like 2002 or something like that.
Around the same time I was starting.
Yeah, it's really hard to find any of that shit, but it was Lawrence Taylor was like one of the representatives on the show, and it was a lot of fun. It was cool. It was cool. That's my fight. That's my fighting career right there. 1-0.
Hey, at least you know what it feels like to walk in there, man. That's I think everybody should do that once in their life, man.
Yeah.
What a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, in the tough man competition too, you're fairly protected. The gloves are fairly big. We had headgear.
Yeah,
it's way different than having somebody fucking kick you in the face.
That's one of the few things I still remember about that first fight was just how like vulnerable you are. Like your shirt's off, and
Yeah.
and like these gloves are so small, and you're just like, boy, I hope this dude can't hit as hard as I think he can. Yeah.
What did you do in that fight? Do you remember any of it?
Yeah. I actually I ran out and fucking punched him right away, and he shot in on me, and which was completely unexpected, right? Because in the back with like the one guy who was fighting later that I kind of became friends with, and he was like kind of showing me how to fight a little bit. He's like, "This is how you throw a jab." He's like, "This is how you throw a kick." I'm sure he was showing me completely wrong, but
Right.
he told me, he's like, "Man, this guy's a tough man guy." He's like, "So you got to take him down." I was like, "I ain't fucking doing that, man. I ain't no pussy, And so anyway, so I ran out. I was like, I'm gonna prove all these people wrong. So I went out and I hit him, and as hard as I feel like I hit him, it probably it's like this or something. But
Right.
so he shot in, tries to take me down, and I tried a schoolyard head choke, which was now called a guillotine, but I didn't know what it was. I was like, I'm gonna squeeze this son of a bitch, right? And he tapped out like right away. He claimed that he had a calf cramp,
Oh,
but I was choking.
He's a fucking liar.
Yeah, he was a liar.
calf cramp.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
No rematch, huh?
No rematch. And then so I did now another kid that was in the crowd. He said he wanted to fight me, right?
Oh shit.
So I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I fought him later that night, and he pieced me up pretty good. Like, went to a decision. I lost, but it was like, kind of could have went either way. It was only kickboxing though.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, like my confidence was
People
sky
coming
high,
out of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need more of this.
So at this point, my confidence is sky high, right? And then I come back and I did that at a fairgrounds where they Mark Coleman was actually put on the show, and I remember him and Randeman were there, and this was in like the I guess the show arena of like the horses or the pigs or something, and like we literally warmed up on the dirt in the stall, and so I come out and beat that guy pretty easily. Like he was just a complete fool. I mean, I had like a skinny kid, probably not my weight class. I think they probably set him up, just to get his ass kicked. And then the third time, then I did what they call Sanshao kickboxing, which I didn't know what that term meant. So I come out and, I thought it was Muay Thai because, I knew what, kickboxing was. So I thought it was just kickboxing. And that's what they told me too, by the way. So I come out and, dude comes out, takes me down. This is Sanshau's kickboxing with takedowns, right? You get points based on how big you throw them. So, like, if you just take them down, it's like a point. If their feet go over their head, then it's like 5 points, right? So the referee will call it out 1 to 5, right? Anyway, so he comes out, takes me down, and I'm looking at the ref. I was like, man, what the fuck is that? Like, we ain't doing takedowns, man. This ain't MMA, right? And he's like, well, fight, right? Comes out, takes me down again. Now I'm pissed. I'm like, this is some bullshit. So I come out the third time, and I actually have the VHS of this. I'll have to put it up on. I just found it the other day. I have to put it up on YouTube or something. But so I come out like a wrestling stance, and bang, he fucking kicks me in my head, and I'm like, what in the fuck is going on here?
What are the rules? Tell me the rules.
So anyway, so the rest of the fight, come out, and I'm just getting my ass kicked. I was set up pretty badly. Actually, I know the guy now. His name is Scotty McLean. He was 12-3 at the time. He kicked my ass really bad. But that was when I realized like how tough I was. But then I also realized that I needed to go to a real gym, and I realized that I had some talent because after the fight, like everybody, I was actually trying to rush off because I had to go work third shift, and they're like, but everybody was like, dude, you did great, like you did awesome, like when you coming back? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I got my ass kicked, right? So I left and went to work, and then the next day I was like, okay, I need to find a real gym, and I just started looking around, and I found a place called Bo Kimley's Martial Arts or some shit like that, and so I go there, and that's where I met my friend Dorian Price, who is still my coach today, still probably my best friend. He lives over in Thailand, and he'll come back only for my camps. He doesn't come back and train anyone else, only comes back, trains me. So that's where my real Thai style comes from is Dorian. He goes over, He learns the real Thai system. He lives like a fucking savage up there in the jungles. You know, he sleeps on mats in the Thai camps with
Yeah.
insects and reptiles, and you know, like literally lives, you know, the life that they live, and has no desire to do much beyond that. And now he's getting into commentating and stuff. He's older, and he's probably, you know, retiring any day now. He's already retired like 5 times, but probably officially retiring any day now. And yeah, so the rest is kind of history. You know, it's Muay Thai, and then. But
Did you
yeah,
have to learn a lot of other stuff? I mean, you know, there's a lot that goes into being, especially like a UFC fighter on that level, because you can get, you know, an arm bar, or, you know, someone can get a hold of your ankle or whatever if you don't know like jujitsu and other stuff too, right?
Yeah. So initially, like, I just wanted to do Muay Thai, like when Dorian introduced me to it, and I was like, I'm just going to be a Muay Thai fighter. But then in Ohio, you know, the scene just wasn't there. It's not really in America at all, but the scene wasn't there where you could make literally any money at all, and you weren't allowed to use elbows. And me and Dorian were both big elbow fighters, so we're like,
Yeah,
you know,
Kevin Ross told us some really horrifying stories about being like dropped off in the middle of nowhere and fucking fighting and
Yeah.
just really wild
oh, yeah,
shit. We were
in
like,
China, right?
yeah, we were like, what the hell?
yeah,
Sounded horrifying.
yeah. Yeah, so and then, you know, that's when I was really getting a lot heavier into the strength training and learning that side of things, because basically by this point that this is when I decided I'm dedicating my life to this way. This is the path I'm taking, and I looked at every aspect that I could, in terms of you know, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, like I said, initially I wanted to do Muay Thai, but you know, I found out real quick there wasn't any money in it. There wasn't really a scene, nothing like that. So, you know, the idea of going to Thailand was pretty crazy to me. So, you know, I was like, you go do that, Dorian, and you can come tell me what you think. You know, so that's why, you know, I started wanting to do MMA, and then I met, you know, one thing kind of led to another, you know, and I met guys that were good fighters, and again, you know, I immediately just dove completely deep into it. I bought every book I could possibly imagine. I would every job that I had, I would do. I would keep it just long enough so I could pay my rent, so that I could go train again. There was many days where I didn't have money for food. There was many days that I was sure I was getting kicked out of my apartment. And then when I finally decided I was going to go pro, it was really because I needed rent money, and I was like, you know, I'm fighting for free. I could, you know, be paying my rent money with this. I didn't really have, at that time, I wasn't really like I'm going to get to the UFC. I was just like, I'm going to be a fighter, and I'm going to dedicate my life to this, and I don't really care what comes of it, but it's going to be better than what I was doing before.
How did this turn into you being in the UFC?
Well, let's see. So again, I kind of dedicated my life to it, and then I eventually got. Again, I was working these jobs like just so I could pay my rent, and so I could make it. You know, maybe have to pay my travel to get to a fight. You know, it wasn't really, you know, paying for anything, and I did this for a few years, and that was when I finally got an opportunity in New York City to be a personal trainer, and I didn't really understand what that meant, but to me, I was like, oh, I get to be in a gym all day, so I'll be able to train. It was Crunch Fitness was what it was, and back then, especially that location was really big on, you know, the boxing too, right? So I was like, man, I'll get to train all day, right? And that's all I'll have to do. I guess I didn't put 2 and 2 together and realize like you also have to train other people, and that's kind of exhausting. But either way, so I was up there, you know, and I was training people all day, and I was training myself a lot, and I didn't actually realize how expensive New York City was, because at the time the girl that I lived with there, not my current wife, but one before, we just lived with her family, and that was, you know, so how we were able to get by. Well, anyway. After about a year of being there, the tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter were over in Newark, and I went over there and did the tryouts, and they brought me on the show.
And what was that process like getting on the show? I mean, there's probably thousands and thousands of people that try out, right?
There wasn't that many. I mean, this was, a while back. This was right when it first really kind of started going over that tipping point, I think, and that's when things were really getting big. This was 2007 was when I went to the tryout.
Yeah.
And in 2008 was when I was on the show, in January 2008. So 10-year anniversary this year.
And do you have to win to get a contract? Is that the way the show works? You have to.
No. So initially that was kind of the idea, and then Dana was like, seeing how much talent came out of it, and he gave other guys contracts also, and then it eventually just became where the winner gets the biggest and best contract,
Right?
And if you show promise, then he'll potentially give you a contract too. So I got offered a contract, nothing special, it was just like 8-8, and back then most guys were coming into the UFC at like 3-3 or 4-4, so I thought I was pretty hot shit, to get double what most guys coming in were getting. But I also had to fight on the show for pennies. So, I think I made like $2,000 or $3,000 total on the show. So
a lot goes into all this training, I know that you know Andy Galpin. I know that you work a lot on your nutrition and your cardio and stuff. How is a scientific approach been applied to some of what you're doing?
Well, I think I try to take everything that can be scientific and objective and learn as much about it as I can, so that when I get the advice from those who have dedicated their lives to each specific discipline, like a nutritionist or a strength coach or whatever, so I can really interpret that information with some sort of knowledge. So that's the first thing that the reason that I've always tried to educate myself on. But I really... So it's sort of like I'm the CEO of the business, and I'm hiring people to advise me, right? So when I'm hiring people to advise me, I want to know that I have the best advisors, and the way to do that is I have to have some understanding myself.
Right.
But I can't know nutrition as well as my nutritionist. I can't know strength as well as my strength coach. I can't know jiu-jitsu as well as my jiu-jitsu coach, right? So that's why, so my philosophy has always been know enough about it that I know how to get the right person in there for me.
Is it frustrating to you, when athletes are, utilizing anabolics, utilizing PEDs to get ahead, and you think there's other people in the sport perhaps not going that route because they know it's not it's on the banned substance list?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a long subject we could certainly dive into. I mean, the way that I look at it is, I think everything should be legal. In terms of, I mean, now you kind of get into like a political thing too. I mean, I think it should just be legal from a government point of view, and then if an organization wants to ban it or not, that's their prerogative, right? And they can do it the way they want. But I think humans should be allowed to put whatever they want in their body, and that starts with the overall society, my overall society view. I'm a big believer in freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get deeper into, so the UFC says it's illegal, you can't take that. That's where the issues come up, because now what happens is certain guys are able to take it, but as I've spoken about before, the reason is because the repercussions and the consequences are not severe enough to deter them away from doing it, and that's why I've advocated for a lifetime ban. I'm happy right now with they do like a 4-year ban. I think it's 2 years initially, but that's a good start. I mean, I think it should at least be severe enough, like a 4 years at least, to really deter someone.
The sport might pass you by, right? In those 4 years, right?
Yeah, and you have to understand that risk. And again, it's not that I have something against the substance itself, but if we're going to make it illegal, we have to make it illegal.
Right. Yeah, you got to have a strong stance on it. Otherwise, people are still going to figure out a way around all the testing. With your style of fighting, how do you determine when to make like a change? Because you're known as like a brawler. That's what people get excited about. That's kind of why they want to see you fight. But sometimes it just probably doesn't make sense to stand there and take all these shots, right?
Yeah, well, I hope I don't take too many shots. A lot of people call me a brawler. Technical brawler is probably what I'm known more as, and And I think that the real reason for that is because, like, I will push the brawl to what I do, and I do it in a technical way. It's not just a wild brawl. Like, I use technique to get it to what I want it to be. And um, the men. I mean, there's a lot to that. It's not as simple as just going in there and swinging punches. I mean, I really have to get the fight to where I want it to be, and that's really the key to a fight. And I made a lot of mistakes where I've gotten away from that in the past, and nowadays that's why I think I'm gonna be such a good coach. Right? I've been doing some coaching over at Muscle Farm, and we have a great program to be building there, and the part of the reason I think I'll bring another aspect to that is because I've made these mistakes. I've done the things right and I've done the things wrong. And I guess, like what we were talking about before, we see people that do it right and they win 10 fights and then they lose one and all of a sudden they change everything. And that's a mistake too, because, statistically, that's less than 10% that was a mistake. So, you have to look at it objectively and see what's working and what's not.
How do you get back? You said you're going to be out for probably a year. Got a knee, got an ankle thing going on. It's going to take you some time. How do you get back in the hunt?
Well, I guess I could look at it a lot of different ways. I mean, first and foremost, I'm not even looking at beyond right now the recovery. Right now, I'm looking at the day to day, and I'm looking at doing the best that I can in the moment. And right now, that's not fighting. So I'm trying to give to others. Again, what I'm doing at Muscle Farm, where I'm helping others and building a great team there, trying to bring that up. So I really try to focus on what I can do in the moment. Now, when I come back, it's going to be a different story. And
Are you just dying to punch somebody in the face?
I wouldn't mind.
Andrew,
any takers?
Well, he was saying he wouldn't punch anybody because all the little bones in the fist, right? But what
elbow,
elbow,
it's the one elbow, right?
Elbow or knee or kick.
So if you want to elbow Smokey, go ahead.
Yeah, elbow first and foremost, and that's same in a fight.
That's Mariel's move too. That's what she does. She does the elbow.
Oh, really?
Elbow straight to the back.
Oh, that's good technique. Right? Like you're wearing a soft glove. Why you want to hit him with something soft when you hit him with something hard, right?
Yeah.
It's the same. Why would I, throw a small projectile like this when I have a entire leg I could throw at you?
Right.
Doesn't really make any sense.
Has the injury and the setback, has it been devastating to you?
No, not at all. Again, I've been doing tons of stuff with Muscle Farm, man, and they've really stepped up and helped me. And I got to throw out a big shout out to them.
You've been with them for a while, right?
Yeah, I've been sponsored by them for a while, but now at this point, they've really helped me during this downtime, give me a lot of direction and help me for what I'm gonna do after fighting, which is going to be coaching people. I'm the type of guy for the rest of my life. I want to be in the trenches. I don't want to just be that coach that's just telling people what to do or trying to guide them, some philosophical bullshit. Like, I want to be in the trenches with them and learning at the same time that I'm sharing my experience and my knowledge with them. And again, Muscle Farm has given me a great opportunity to do that and a great platform to do that on. We have a lot of great fighters there that I'm learning just as much from as they're learning from me. And Joe Schilling, Mickey Gall, Alan Joe Bond, and Bamba. We got a bunch of great guys there, and great knowledge just being passed around. And to me, again, I dedicated my life to this path years ago, and whether that means I'm competing or whether I'm helping others, it doesn't really mean a lot to me. And that's a big difference, I think, because I understand why I'm going to make such a good coach is because I understand what it feels like to walk in there. So I've only done one full camp all the way through. I've helped tons of guys, with coaching, but with Jesse Taylor, he did the Ultimate Fighter finale, and I did his entire camp, top to bottom. I did the program design. I did I brought in the sparring partners, brought them to different places, and So basically left it to where he didn't have to think at all about what we're doing day to day. And when he stepped in that cage, see, I even misstepped and said when we stepped in that cage, because that's the big difference, I think, is because I've been in there so many times that I understand what it feels like. And when he stepped in that cage, I stepped in there with him. The only difference was, when he gave me a hug, our body split, but our spirit stayed in one place and walked right in there with him.
Is your wife supportive of your fighting?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, she loves it, and she's been right there by my side since day one. Well, not day one, but at least in the UFC, very early on.
Yeah.
She's seen a lot of the ups and downs, and
what about family? Some family members go to your fights and things like that, or?
Yeah, last time I fought in Cincinnati, I think close to my home, more people came to that than my family reunion.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, my family loves it. I mean, my family's all country boys. We come from Kentucky, so yeah, they're all hillbillies love fighting. That's for sure.
So you're able to reconnect with your family, or are you talking about your immediate family now?
Yeah, well, my immediate family, and then I come to find I have a much larger family than before I was in the UFC too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little weird, right?
Yeah.
Funny story. The first time that when I was on the Ultimate Fighter, my family reunion, I went to it, and I was thinking, all my close family that I'd seen at the family reunion for however many 20 years or whatever, it was going to be cool, and get to show off a little bit. Well, ended up every one of them had called all their friends. It was like, hey, my cousin's gonna be here, whatever. Ended up having a line at my family reunion and me signing autographs.
Wow, that's cool, man.
It's kind of cool, but at the same time, I was like, man, I'm not even get to hang out with my real family.
Yeah. What was it like training in Cuba?
Cuba. It was fucking amazing, man. Like one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of the training and the things I learned there, but just from a societal perspective and learning, seeing these kids come up in the conditions they come up in. I can show you guys pictures that just blow your mind, man.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the training rooms that they come up in, like Yo Romero, I visited his hometown, because the guy that I went there with, one of my coaches, one of his best friends, he grew up in Cuba, so one of his best friends grew up right next to Yo Romero, and we went over there. It's called Pinar del Rio, and they showed me the training room, and it's just a dirt floor, so when mats get really wet, they start breaking up, and they kind of have little balls, right? And so they would sweep that up, and they would have a mat then with all those little balls swept up into a mat. And I was like, that's why they have such good takedown defense, right? They learn real quick. But the room wasn't no bigger than this room here, and it's dirt floor. And I can show you the pictures, man. Raggedy old thing. And that was the first time I'd ever rode a donkey in my life. We rode a donkey out to cockfights in the forest, which I guess is illegal there too.
Right.
So I'm doing something illegal in Cuba. And I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. I don't want to go to jail in Cuba. But how many people have got to do that in their life? So
right.
What was the motivation for wanting to train over there?
Well, my coach, he was from there, so that was a cool thing, and really just to experience a completely different style of training. What a lot of the Cuban training comes from is from the Russian style of training, and I wanted to kind of learn that style, and I wanted to have a complete focus on just wrestling. So I went there and we lived with the wrestling team for 6 weeks, and we did nothing but wrestle. I boxed like 2 or 3 times, went over to the Olympic boxing guys, but I mean, we literally lived wrestling for almost 2 months.
Yeah. Damn. You got kids?
3.
Holy shit. You have twin boys?
Twin boys, 7 years old, 2-year-old daughter.
Damn.
Love them.
How do you split your time up? Especially when while you were fighting. Right now it might be a little different because you might have more downtime.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance everything out?
You don't. It's hard, man. That's the hard part. The fighting part that seems so hard until you have kids and a family and stuff. And now, really, that's the challenge, is being able to give them what they need and what they deserve out of me as a human, as a father and a husband, and still being able to dedicate 24 hours a day to fighting.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is. And, trying to keep up with all the people that don't have families that are able to dedicate that. So, there's, like anything, there's a yin and yang, and you can make it what you want it to be. And I just turned it into a positive thing, and I used my kids as inspiration. And, I come home and they relax me. As crazy as they are, as much as they want to jump on me and punch me and kick me and all this.
They know some of the moves?
They absolutely do. Yeah, yeah. I just saw I guess it was on my story, but so it's gone now. But I was showing my kid practicing his elbows the other day. Yeah. So I have one that, he's ultra athletic. He does gymnastics. That's really like his thing right now. And he's the smartest kid I've ever met in my life. He's in like all the gifted and talented programs and all that. And then my other one, he's very creative and he plays the drums. He shows videos like me and him jamming. Like I play guitar, and so he plays like full songs now, and at 7 years old. So I'm blessed, man. I have some very talented kids, and hopefully, not hopefully, I'm going to guide them to keep them on the right path and not let them stray.
Yeah, and you would be the first one to know, right?
Yeah.
You'd be able to see it.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And again, it's all about, just having that communication with them and, being their friend. And, I don't have to always be their dad. That's, I think, where I think I see a lot of parents making mistakes. Like they always want to be the dad. It becomes almost like an ego thing. And, their son, can't test them, whatever. And like I let my kids talk back to me and, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They understand respect and they say sir and things like that. But on the same token, if they disagree and they think I'm wrong, they're allowed to speak up. So,
right.
I think there's fine balance there.
What is martial arts and fitness? What has it done for you?
Saved my life. I'd be dead right now for sure, or in prison.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. So,
is there something inside of you that wants to, has a desire to really like push forward, or in MMA training, a lot of times you get pushed to your limit, like cardiovascularly, and is there something in you that like really enjoys some of that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing I like more than finding my breaking point, because I see that breaking point today. It's not going to be there tomorrow, and tomorrow it's going to be a little bit further. Yeah, I'm gonna push that edge a little bit closer. And that's about knowing yourself and understanding yourself, I believe. And I find that breaking point all the time because it's there. I mean, we're humans; it exists.
Yeah.
People, that say they can't be broken, whatever, are bullshit. They absolutely can. But
it's a form of therapy for you in a way.
Absolutely. And again, for me, it's all about that direction, man. When I find I know where I want it to end. I have the end in mind before I get started. So whatever obstacles are along that road, don't bother me. That's exactly what I see them as. It's just an obstacle that's just going to build me stronger. So when I get there, it's even better.
How are you managing stress?
Depends on what kind of stress.
Just eating it.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of stress. I mean, the family stress is certainly, the hardest one to deal with, right? Like kids have something new every day that could possibly stress you out. Living with another human being, no matter how much you love them, can be a difficult thing. But, the number one things, like I do a lot of meditation, visualization and stuff like that. And just, I guess kind of, again, when I have that direction in mind, and I have that tunnel vision, everything on the side is just another obstacle, and I'm able to let it bounce off of me and deal with it appropriately. I mean, there's a certain way to deal with every situation, and I just try to deal with it the way that I see best so that I can stay on the path that I'm on.
With meditation, do you listen to music or do you just relax completely by yourself? What does it look like for you?
I practice a few different forms of meditation. I've been doing it so long that it gets sort of monotonous if you try to just do the same way all the time. YouTube actually has a lot of great resources these days. I have a guy that I actually hired to do hypnosis, is like fighthypnosis.com, I think. He's a great guy, so he'd do a lot of guided meditation, or specifically for combat sports, called Gold Medal Mental Workout. And I got this from a judo medalist probably 10 years ago, before I was even in the UFC. And I've been using it ever since, and it's an amazing program. It's an Eastern European program. Um, we go over this book, Red Gold. Have you ever heard of this book?
No.
Amazing book, written by a Russian sports psychologist, and he has a lot of. I just kind of got through it recently, and it has a lot of new things that I've never tried. So I'm trying some of these things now, like putting ping pong balls, cutting them in half, putting them over your eyes, and then listening to music, or doing things like having a speaker on this side, a speaker on this side, two different musics playing, and having to focus on one at a time. So being able to, a lot of little techniques.
Should that be hard?
It's very hard, but the more you do it, you can actually feel the difference in your brain being able to do it. And that's really just about being able to switch those channels, right? Going from being the savage killer in the gym, then coming home and saying, "Hey, how you doing, baby?"
Right.
And not where I used to come home, still be that savage killer,
Yeah.
fuck, slam the door, or give me some fucking food, and be that guy. Relationships, come to find out. um, so yeah, man, I could go on all day about different styles. Meditation I see as a very vast word. Most people just think of it as, doing like yoga, or visualizing, or just sitting and doing and things like that. Where that's just one style and one aspect of mindfulness that I try to practice a lot more than just that. And again, I've been doing it for so long, like it gets very monotonous and boring.
What are these 21 steps you got going?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know. I just see it written here.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It says Immortal Wisdom.
Well,
21 steps and motivation. Maybe we wrote something.
Yeah,
down.
I'm not sure where the 21 steps came from, but Immortal Wisdom is the blog that I'm going to be starting up on my website. That
Awesome.
I haven't really done it yet. See, so what happens? I've read hundreds of books, and I have a huge.
This is why I don't read, because so many people come on the show and they read books for me.
Yeah,
read them for you.
just give you all the cliff notes.
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, man, you ever read this?" And I'll say, "No, what did it say?"
And tell me all about it.
And then you go and tell everybody, dude, you guys got to check out this book.
But then the problem is their interpretation may not be
That's
your
true.
interpretation.
They might fuck it all up.
So I have
Damn it.
I have a pretty good library of books, and basically what I've done is
It's actually called the library.
library.
Your microphone keeps
Library.
going down. Like, does this
gotta-
happen to you a lot? Or
You got to tighten it up.
I'm sorry.
Does that happen
Like
a lot,
up
or just
and then
it
tighten.
just kind of goes flaccid like that?
Keep cranking.
Kind of a
It's a
There you go.
problem I
thing.
have.
You're good.
Got
all the
blue
punches
pills.
to the head or something.
Now I'm not going to be able to unlock that.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so I have a pretty good library of books. What I've been doing for years, I think I was just telling you, like super training, like I've read it a bunch of times, but sitting there reading it and trying to apply it is very difficult.
Yeah, it's really hard.
So what I've learned to do is I take a book, and then I take the notes, and then I consolidate that book into what really applies towards me in my life. And I've done this with so many books now. I have so many writings that I've put together that I'm like, man, this is actually helping me a lot. Maybe I could share it with some people. So that's where Immortal Wisdom has come about. And I just haven't actually released a blog yet, because really what happens, if anybody has ever written, which I'm sure you've done a lot of writing, the problem is, you have to write 10 pages to get one. And
Yeah, making time for it.
yeah, and it's all, I have the time, I guess, I make the time, but it turns, you end up throwing most away, and it's never good enough. And that's sort of something that I guess I have to stop and say, look, it's good enough. And
It causes you to write a lot more, because you start saying something and you're like, oh, then people aren't going to understand it, and you gotta.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. And that's part of just right. I guess you just have to accept what it is and maybe expand on it later or something. So I'm learning all that and just trying to be a better writer. I do, like I think I have a good amount of knowledge, and I think I have a lot to share. So, it's important to me to get it out there, and it helps me understand it more when I write it down or when I share it with others.
Do people ask you a lot about addiction? Like when people
Yeah,
hit
I
you up
do.
and hit you up on Instagram and different things?
Yeah, I get lots of questions about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's so many people that have problems or know somebody that has a problem. Where do you advise somebody to even just start that has a problem?
Yeah, that's one of the problems with social media is everybody like asks these questions looking for quick fixes, and I get a lot of questions about the fighting and about addiction and other things, and it's so hard to because
Can't really just say one quick thing about it. You got to.
yeah, it's very hard, and like the last thing I want to give them something, but at the same time, like if I give them the wrong thing, maybe it doesn't apply to them. Maybe I just fucked it up, made it worse, right? So I try to be very careful. I think I try to tread very lightly and try to be general about something that's really could be something very specific.
How does somebody just know that they have a problem?
Yeah, that's a good question.
They have to kind of find that out for themselves, huh?
Yeah, again, trying to give a general answer to a very narrow question. I think.
Yeah, it's like too precise, right?
I think so. I mean, I think you could probably weigh in on that as much as I could.
Yeah.
Like people ask, like, how do I get started in powerlifting? Like, what do you say? Go fucking lift a weight. You know.
Yeah.
If someone asks, how do I get out of addiction? We'll put it down. I mean,
Right.
But that's way too oversimplified, and that could
Right.
just make it worse. Like, oh, that's his best answer, right? So. It's a very tough question, and I've gotten into some long conversations with people, asking them questions like, really trying to help them, and then most of the time you come to find when you do dig deeper, they don't really want to quit, or they were just wanting to talk, some sort of ulterior motive a lot of times, and then when you do get that person that actually is listening and cares, it does make it worth it though.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Doing the Westside Barbell stuff, doing the box squats and speed bench, and did some of those things translate over well for you in MMA? Did you find your hands were faster and feet were faster or more powerful or more explosive?
Absolutely, and I've talked about it a million times. All the stuff at Westside, we absolutely helped me physically get better, stronger, faster. But more than anything, man, is that culture, is that lifestyle, and that feeling, and
Crazy bastards.
yeah, crazy bastards for sure. Right? But man, just the intensity and this is something again I want to bring to my coaching is that intensity, and so there's like a whole side of sports psychology that isn't really brought into. So basically, what we end up having, I think, especially in MMA, I can't speak as much on like powerlifting or other sports, but certainly in MMA, we have all these coaches that do different programming. We have a jiu-jitsu coach, a strength coach, a boxing coach, and they each have their own program design or no program design, which is also all too uncommon. But then you have a sports psychologist, and it really usually like the sports psychologists and the nutritionists are just really completely on the side, right? And then and they may be prescribing something that really doesn't align with what they're doing in the gym every
Maybe
day.
not everybody's like a cohesive unit, huh?
There's no synergy, cohesiveness at all. And then even when there is, again, you have guys that are stubborn about their programming, right? And so to me, the one thing like at Westside was that they brought a certain psychology every day that Louie brought. They brought the strength training every day. They brought a lifestyle, a culture that really carried over into all other aspects. And it was pretty easy to get the buy-in from the other coaches to be on that same program. And my coach, Tom Barry, that I worked with at Westside, who was kind of Louie's right-hand man, he would come with me to pretty much all of my training, see what we're doing, and see how he could add or take away from that. And a lot of what we did was, I think, so we were constantly evolving it. And one of the things that we did pretty much right away was take the training days down to like less than 45 minutes of actual training, and 5-minute rounds, and a lot more recovery days. even like the dynamic days, sometimes we're, I might feel like we're doing a dynamic, but we're really kind of doing a recovery and dynamic together. The two can kind of work hand in hand. So, there was a lot of evolution, and they're still evolving it and getting it better all the time. But I think that was one of the things. So, like, what I want to bring as a head coach, what I'm bringing to Muscle Farm right now, right, as a coaching these guys is, we have a beautiful facility. We have like an awesome recovery that we're getting put in with the cryo and everything. But also, I want to be that guy that's like, there's a psychological aspect to everything you're doing too. And there's this also plays a role in your nutrition too. And this plays a role in your strength training. And when you're doing your strength training, you can add a psychological aspect to it. Rather than, just do this training, whatever, and then you go home and now you talk to your sports psychologist and you say, hey, how was your training or whatever, right? It's just too separated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard we had a friend of mine on the show, James Smith, and he kind of felt that's a problem with coaching in all sports, is that the strength coach isn't communicating well with the defensive line coach and the defensive coach and the head coach and so on, and so the principles are scattered, and some of the philosophy is a little different. The philosophy at Westside is all kind of the same,
Yeah, exactly,
just
right.
It's intense all the time, get after it all the time.
Yeah, and I think they've actually probably added more recovery and yeah, I mean, mainly so that the intensity during the training sessions can be brought up. So now they do more recovery too, right? And yeah, I mean that's exactly it. You have all these different programs, and you're basically you're almost confusing the athlete. I think that's where injuries come in, and again, I mean I think there's everybody talks about like the psychological, the mental part is 80% or 90%, right? Which is complete bullshit, right? That it's just as important like it's 50-50 or 100-100 really. 100%, right? Your mind needs to be 100% and your body needs to be 100%, not anything less, right? There's an optimal to each thing, and so I get sick of hearing that kind of stuff, and that's where people they get biased towards their own thing, right? Like the sports psychologist is going to tell you, yeah, mental is 90% of it, right? And the strength guy is going to be like, dude, you need to get stronger, But why can't the two be one, right? And the same, every day when we're training, if you're training half-ass every day mentally, then when you go in a fight, I don't care how much sports psychology you did, I don't care how much visualization you did and everything. If you have the habit and your nervous system has been tuned to training half-ass, then when you go in the cage, you're going to fight half-ass. So the key is maintaining that that balance all the time, right? So that's why renewal is such an important thing.
How do you make good habits? Because it's got to be difficult, to do it time and time again, especially when you go through like a training camp.
Yeah, again, the renewal is the number one thing, right? So that when I do step on the mats, I can, and bring myself up to the level that I need to be at on a daily basis. And I've noticed as the older I get, the shorter my training sessions need to be, and the more renewal that I do need, especially with having a family and everything. And
need to split things up, maybe have like more workouts that are shorter in length. So you might do 2 or 3 workouts that are 40 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that Louie Simmons is, he's obviously he's a strength guru, but people don't know that he knows a lot about conditioning. He knows a lot about. He's been a huge fight fan for a
and fixing it, right? So I wouldn't say that. Most of the conditioning comes from the mats anyway, but I would say more like the strength endurance type stuff came up, or where like body parts would start breaking down, during training, and they would be able to extrapolate those out and see what those are. And but more than anything, I mean, when you are stronger, like you said, strength is never a weakness, right?
Yeah.
And when you're stronger, your body parts are going to fail less often, and they're not going to compensate as much. So, we created a lot better symmetries and a lot better functional movement patterns and things like that.
What's your philosophy on conditioning? Like, do you feel that it needs to come from road work, or do you feel it just needs to come from a kind of ferocious appetite and training to kind of keep pushing hard?
Both. I mean, I think everything can add a little bit more icing onto the cake, but we have to start with our cake, right? Make sure that we have a good cake, and there's tons of things that'll add icing onto that, and a lot of like
an ice cream cake. That's the only good cake that there is, ice cream cake, in my opinion.
You know what? Now you mention it, I'm
Yeah,
with you on
that. Cake is just bread with sugar spread all over it.
I never really thought of it, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
They're just too expensive, right?
Fuck cake.
The Cold Stone's like $50 for one of those little fucking cakes.
Yeah, those are pricey, but they're delicious.
They are. Yeah, I might have to go get one tonight. So the again, that's all icing on the cake. That is really, that's what I guess too many people. I'm sure you see this in powerlifting all the time. Everybody's worried about that 1% when they don't have the foundation that would take them 20%. Right. This is such a common thing. I mean, I always say, like, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but they all require a sharp blade. So, like, let's first sharpen the blade, right? And then we'll worry about skinning the cat, all right? And that's where I think so many people fuck up. They ask me these detailed questions. We're talking about social media, the questions I get. These people ask the funniest questions, like, man, how do I get my cardio up? It's like, well, I don't fucking know. Like, what do you do now? Why is your cardio not already good? And I do think, road work is a good fundamental base. I think, but it probably, the number one thing, right, is efficiency of movement. And that goes with training, hitting pads and having a good coach.
Yeah, if you're throwing shit punches and you're just, really crappy at takedowns, you're going to be exhausted trying a couple takedowns, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that comes from efficiency of movement and being comfortable in those bad positions and things like that. And then, the problem, the reason, like, I'm big on like road work or, so like a lot of people are, okay, I don't want to take away like steady state, like road work type stuff. It's perfectly fine to do that. The way I prefer to do is, like, why don't you just go punch a bag for 45 minutes, keep your heart rate up the same, but work, on that efficiency of movement for 45 minutes, which is something that's I think is a better answer than going and banging your joints for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever it is that you do. But on the same token, right, there, that monotony is going to, and this again, about having a good coach, right? That monotony of hitting a bag for 45 minutes could be problematic if you're not able to maintain your focus that whole time, which is a long time to maintain your focus. So in that case, yeah, go swim, go run, go ride your bike, and that way, you're still getting the benefit, but you're not here destroying the movement, right? Because if you throw the punch for 45 minutes wrong, then, you're really creating some bad motor patterns. Right. Whereas I'd rather you throw it right for 10 minutes, now go run, and get that blood volume and things like that you'll get from that steady state conditioning, the aerobic capacity, as well as getting at. And so, I think it's very dependent on the individual. And this is, again, where I think I'll bring a lot as being a head coach, because I understand the efficiency of movement, but I also understand, okay, when that movement starts breaking down, now you got to do something else. Or, we want to do it, until it breaks down and then a little bit more. But, that's where now your mind comes in, right? Because the reason the movement's breaking down is probably because of your mind. The saying that one of my coaches, Mark Montoya, would say was like, when you feel like you're at the very end, you probably have about 40% left still. You might think you're at the end, but you still have a lot more left. You barely went past half of your true capacity.
Yeah.
So that's where the mental aspect comes in, because really your mind's, and this is where I tell people, like, stop listening to your mind so much, right?
Well, people got to understand the human body is designed to kind of conserve energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not really designed to like have this crazy energy output. We're designed to have some.
Fact.
But once you start getting fatigued, your body's like, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore. Let's abandon this. You're sweating a lot. You're tired. Your legs are tired.
Yeah, and the body's meant to adapt to things too, right?
That's true.
That's what it's built for, is adaptation. So, we have to create the stressor to get that adaptation out of it. And that's why I said, go a little bit more. And that's where, your mind really comes in. again, I mean, that's where I think I have an advantage over most coaches, just understanding things like that, where it's really your mind that's breaking down. It's not your body. And I think, and that's one of the things, I think really came from Westside. Like, you're realizing how much you can do when you go to Westside. You don't realize how much weight you can lift until you're at Westside. And I tell everybody this, your PR is going to go up the first day you walk in there.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know if they got, fucking, a ghost in there that are helping or spirits or whatever, but there's something in the air there that.
Did they put you in any powerlifting gear at all? Like Louie's?
No, I never did any gear.
Yeah, he's a huge fan of like, even just for. I've seen people in there before that don't compete. That he'll sometimes have them in like squat briefs or whatever.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked about it before, but.
That's because it saves your hips. You still, you're still able to get a lot out of the training without the equipment doing everything for you.
And as much as I went there, I mean, I was always, as much as I learned from Louie, I've always been, it's good and bad. I've always been the type of person like kind of tell him like, look, this is, I'm doing this or I'm doing this too, right? I would push back a lot and I would question everything and be very skeptical and like everything, there's a pro and a con to that, and sometimes it would cause problems. And I argue with Louie about a lot of things. And Louie's not someone you really want to argue with. Like, he doesn't really put up with that very well. But so I guess I wouldn't argue. I'd be very respectful, but just ask the question, and then maybe I'd disagree. But but that was one of the things I just was never really about.
Right.
That kind of thing.
No, ultimately, you're the one getting in the cage, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So
I'm the CEO.
You got to protect your joints. You got to protect the integrity of your body, and you can't go messing it up on some weird ultra wide deadlift with bands or something like that, right?
Well, we did a lot of sumo deadlifting. I don't know what ultra wide would be, but we just certainly did a lot of sumo deadlifting. Made my hips way stronger.
Yeah,
got my glute activation up a lot.
Building up that ass.
That peach. Yeah. Are you reading anything right now?
Yep.
What you got?
Right now, I'm rereading the book Musashi. You guys know about this book?
I do not.
Oh man,
we don't know. We don't know about no books.
So the Book of Five Rings, right?
I'm not much of a book reader.
All right, so I'm
off the team.
So basically, I'm sure you guys know about the Art of War. So there's basically the Art of War, and there's the Book of Five Rings, and those are the two kind of classical Asian philosophy books. The Book of Five Rings was written by Miyamoto Musashi in the late 1600s, or the second half of the century at least. Actually, maybe the first half, whatever. But in the I guess that'd be the 17th century, 1600s.
How does that work?
Fucking butchering this shit, goddamn. But so anyway, that was the Book of Five Rings was his instructional, so to speak, on swordsmanship. So a lot of the people in that day, there's sort of the trifecta of samurai books. There's Hagakure, The Unfettered Mind, and Book of Five Rings, and then there's a bunch more too. I believe that's the trifecta that is kind of the most famous. Well, anyway, those are kind of more about the Zen philosophy and how that applies to swordsmanship, which were a lot of the guys that would practice like Buddhism and stuff, and also practice swordsmanship. Well, Miyamoto Musashi was more the guy that actually put it to practical use. So his book is more about how to win specifically. Very, very powerful book.
When you
Probably
read
my
stuff
favorite book ever.
When you read stuff like that, do you take notes, kind of thing, or are you just kind of a mental note?
I've read and listened to the Book of Five Rings so many times that I probably would take notes, but I just don't. I don't feel it necessary. It's not that complicated of a book. It's not very long and everything. And now the book Musashi, the one that I'm rereading right now, is the story of his life, which is probably there's probably a lot of fiction in it, but all the characters are real, and there's some historical evidence of some facts in there. But it is written by a guy. I believe he lived after Musashi, so it's not like historical fact by any means,
Right.
but one of the best stories I've ever read in my life. And if anybody does want to kind of delve into it, the episode 100 of Jocko's podcast, he did it with Tim Ferriss, and they covered the book Musashi very intensely. And that was what got me to reread the book, because I read it probably 4 or 5 years ago when Louie was telling me about Musashi, and he would use a lot of Musashi stories in his kind of philosophies. And I reread it because Tim Ferriss, I guess, had lived in Japan, and so he kind of gave a different perspective, like, you know, how the Japanese see it. So it's sort of like the Gone with the Wind of Japan, where everybody over there knows the story, everybody loves the story, and so hearing that perspective from him and Jocko, I reread it, and now it's got a deeper meaning to it.
Got any more questions over there, buddy?
Yeah. You know,
I guess it's mine.
yeah, oftentimes, like, you know, when someone has a drug addiction, they'll kind of roll that over into a different addiction or a different vice.
That's what I did.
Yeah, was it just fighting, or what was it?
Pee break, be right back.
Nope.
Have
I
fun.
dedicated my life solely to the martial arts and fighting, combat, and that's it. I mean, there wasn't. That's 100% what I'm addicted to, and it drives my wife crazy. But you know, I told her long ago, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not looking back. And again, I'll die doing it, or I'll succeed greatly doing it.
What can you tell me about what happened here on The Ultimate Fighter?
So, you know, they edit that shit pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying I didn't like the guy, but so that actually it all kind of happened within, I think it was like the first week on the show.
Oh, shit.
Excuse me. And so, like, my only interaction with him before that was already negative. I forget, like, we'd played chess or something, and he was just kind of a douchebag to me, and I was like, whatever, all right, you know, I want to fight you, right?
There it is.
And me and Forrest had talked that I was going to be fighting him next. And then this is the actual day that me and Forrest had talked that I'm going to be fighting him next. So I'm already looking at him as an enemy.
Sizing him up.
Yes, I'm already, you know, like, all right, you're next, motherfucker, right? And then he played his prank on me, and
So what did he do?
just put lime juice in my dip. You know, it wasn't like. So the one thing, like, kind of people don't know is that, well, first I quit chewing like 3, I don't know, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you know, so he did that prank, and I forget what I was getting at, but you know, he did that, and I was, you know, I was already seeing him as an enemy. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, you're next, motherfucker. You know,
And do you remember who that was?
Jeremy May.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, move.
So I said, you know, he was already my enemy before we'd even got to that point.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
It's no big deal.
yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was like a lot of my friends did that, put lime juice in my dip like all the time after that, right? But it's my friends doing it, you know what I mean? So, and I didn't even care. It was kind of funny, but you know, at that point in time, like, you know, he's my enemy that's doing that shit.
Yeah.
And being that it was like the first week in the house, I kind of wanted to let it be known, like, I'm not the guy you're gonna fuck with.
Right.
You know, it's like you're with a bunch of lions, right? Like, I'm not gonna be the sheep in that place.
Yeah.
Toughest fight?
Douglas Lima, which was before the UFC. He just lost to I think Askren or somebody, Koreshkov maybe or something. He was the Bellator champion.
Tough bastard?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a tough guy, but he kicked my leg harder than I've ever been kicked in my life, and more times I've ever been kicked in my life, and the son of a bitch just kicked so hard. I mean, I didn't walk for 2-3 weeks after that fight, but somehow I pulled it out and won. Like, I don't even know how we're there. There it is.
Is this the fight? Why are you guys fighting in the dark?
I was like,
Why are you wearing a G-string? That's the real question.
And why are you not wearing one
see
right
him
now?
kicking that leg, and you know, yeah, it doesn't look so bad in there, but you know, it hurt like a son of a bitch. You know.
Oh, he's very ferocious with his.
So I was brought into this fight. I trained like a week for this fight. Not even a week. I mean, I think it was less than that. So, you know, I was brought in basically as a sacrificial lamb. He was like a prodigy at that time. And he was the, you know, the champion down that organization. And in Atlanta, he was an Atlanta guy. And my friend was fighting on this, and they asked me, I was just happened to be going with him to corner him. They asked me if I wanted to fight. And yeah, why not? You know, it was a main event. And
in this fight, how long have you been fighting for?
It's professional, so you know, I don't know, to be honest.
3 years, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
It looks like you're.
Certainly green.
Yeah, but it looks like you're very calm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it looked like you're pretty calm, even though he was throwing some heat at you. It looked like you're still
Yeah.
concentrating on what you need to do.
Yeah, it didn't bother me, I guess. I mean,
Who's your favorite fighter?
Vanderlei Silva.
What'd you like about Vanderlei?
His tenacity and
He's a fucking
the
beast.
intensity that he brought into the cage, and yeah, like we were talking about earlier, the Vanderlei is my favorite fighter. My most watched fighter is GSP. My most the guy I study the most, even though we're polar opposites. His philosophy's different than mine. I don't agree with a lot of his philosophy. When we're our fighting styles are completely different. I'm not nearly as safe as him and things like that. But yeah, so but I love how his mental game. What I love about him was that when he lost to Matt Hughes, he came back and beat him. It was a mental lapse. He lost to Matt Serra, came back and beat him, another mental lapse, and overcoming things like that give me a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, that's a big deal. How do you have you avenged any losses that you've had?
I've only had 2 rematches. One I beat the guy the first and second time, and the other guy I lost to the first and second time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
guess
it's
not.
tough, like, getting in the ring with somebody that, in like football or something, you can blame other players on the field and say, oh, they got lucky because they got a better quarterback, or like you can make up all kinds of excuses. But in this, it's really hard to have an excuse. You can't say that you were banged up in your fight camp because everyone's always banged up. There's not a lot you can say, right?
Yeah, the
all
whole
on
banged
you.
up thing, is kind of an old school thing too, right? Everybody used to say that, and I've learned. I've made the mistake, again, a million times of being way too banged up for my fights, and I've certainly lost fights that way. And I don't think that's so true anymore, man. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think you need to be so banged up. I think you can go in very healthy, because the one thing that I've learned is it's better to be undertrained than overtrained. And it goes for sure in powerlifting too.
Yeah. We lift way too heavy, way too often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the case.
And you can, you can push yourself beyond things when you're overtrained. When you're overtrained, like your physiologically your physiologically comes down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something I learned. And again, that's why I think I'll be a better coach than anybody else ever.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
My kids and family, for sure.
In fighting, what are you most proud of?
I knew you were gonna do that. I don't really think too much about what I've done, but I'm always all about what am I gonna do, not what have I done. So I try not to dwell on that too much. If I had to, if you're gonna put me on the spot and force me to give an answer, I'd say my longevity, which is just in the past couple of years of when I never had a surgery until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Never had a serious injury. I didn't back out of a fight due to injury until, I think around like 2 years ago. That was, when I first first had to get surgery and stuff. So
We got to figure out the deal with this ankle, right?
absolutely. Yeah, it's fucking killing me, man. I'm going to see the ortho next week and get this done, because just had surgery on my knee and my fucking ankle is hurting me worse than my knee.
Yeah. We have to have our boy Kelly.
You didn't go
Surratt.
to the in between round, so it was actually probably the best part of the whole thing.
Have to have our boy Kelly Surratt come and check it out.
Yeah, Kelly, what's up, man? I emailed Julie a bunch of times.
Yeah, where are you at, Kelly?
Yeah,
Come help.
I'll be here till tomorrow morning.
Favorite TV show?
I hate TV.
Favorite movie?
300.
Yeah,
There's no other movie.
300's pretty legit.
I don't watch movies either. Go to the in between rounds though. Let's see. No, in between the first and second round.
My bad.
Because it ends after.
I don't. It's hard to scrub through, but do you have a?
Go to like 5 minutes or something.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, right around there somewhere. Like 20 seconds left.
Okay, you got on top of him pretty good there. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty
Look
damn.
at us, like, we're just winging like we're. This is a tough fight, man. His leg kicks are serious.
Yeah.
I've been leg kicked by a lot of people no one kicked my leg the way that he did. And really, I won this fight. He's certainly a better fighter than me. This is one of them where I certainly beat a better guy because of my mentality. Because I was bound and determined. Again, I mean, I go back to it 1,000 times. It's all about the direction. Look, I knew what I wanted. I knew that I was willing to do anything to win this fight, and he wasn't.
Yeah, your habits can oftentimes become part of your character if you practice them long enough, right?
Absolutely.
And if you have a direction, you have a certain path that you want to go, then all the habits and all your thoughts have to be directed towards that direction that you want to go in, over and over again.
Do you have a goal when we can expect to see you back in the octagon?
No, again, I'm playing it by ear. I'm taking it one step at a time. Right now, my goal is to get this knee to where I can make that choice then. One thing at a time, man. I put all my eggs in a single basket at a time.
So I've been drinking a bunch of coffee. I really got to take a dump.
Uh-oh.
Do you have any poop stories from fighting?
I guess you can't really see so much there.
It's dark, but
yeah. I guess the sound's not on too, but
You talking shit?
yeah, I was screaming out. You see, so like right there, the time hadn't come in yet, and I walked over to his corner. You see how he walked out of his corner?
oh shit!
That was me, like already in his corner, because I was like, let's fucking go, like let's start now. And you see the referee pushing back. So that was in my opinion, like that was the mental breaking point for him in this fight. Like in between rounds, I walked over to his corner. And I was like, I was just telling him, like, I'm going to fuck you up this round. And I mean, I could barely even walk myself.
Yeah.
But, I'm, doing everything I can to not show my knee about to buckle out, and I'm just telling him, like, dude, I'm going to fucking kill you this round, bro. This is the end of it here. And see, now, he's starting to get desperate.
Right.
But it's just mental, man. It's just a mental game, my high-level wrestling skills.
Yeah, the mental aspect of this stuff is just crazy.
Yeah, and again, I hate hearing people say, it's 90% mental. It's
Well, you got
100% mental and 100% physical.
Yeah, you got to be prepared.
Yeah, you got to be ready, man, for all sides.
We see it a lot in lifting. The more that someone gets psyched up, and the more they mess around with like what music's on, and the more they're really just trying to talk themselves into doing something that they have kind of lost some belief in themselves about. They're kind of searching for some of this external stuff, and it's like, hey man, there's nothing there.
Dude, that was Musashi's.
You're not going to pull anything out of the sky that's going to help.
That was Musashi's best quote. I have it written right where I write. I have it hanging right there on the wall. It says, "There's nothing outside of yourself that's going to make you bigger, better, faster, stronger, richer. Everything is within."
There you go.
And that's something from the 1600s. I mean, this guy knew that shit back then.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
Anything else over there, Andrew?
I was just trying to get a poop story.
Oh yeah, poop story.
Man, I was thinking all night of a poop story, and I was like, well, so I was FaceTiming my daughter and my wife and everything last night. And I was like, hey, I know you got some good poop stories.
Oh, you're gonna show me a picture?
Kids. Well, I was gonna show you a picture, but the first thing, so my daughter was 2 years old, and she goes, I poop on the living room floor. And I was like, hey, Colleen, is my wife's name. I said, Colleen, did she poop on the floor? She's like, yeah, about a couple months ago. So there's
it's like we need to, maybe not do that anymore, right?
Fortunately, we have hardwood floors.
Lay down some newspaper.
You said that your wall got pooped on too.
Dude, I wish I could find the picture. I mean, it's a splatter. I mean, it looks like someone took a spatula, and flipped it on the wall. I mean, but the whole pattern, I mean, it's bigger than a shotgun pattern. I mean, it's like at least like 24, 30 inches. Because the changing table was facing the wall, and
I'll have to do some forensics on that and see how the breakdown.
Yeah,
I think they need to do like a MRI scan on my son.
Yeah, be like, are you okay, little guy? What happened? My mom bought my son a this like duck, and we made the mistake of having the duck at the end of the changing table, and like I had like a little feet up, and I'm like changing his diaper or whatever, and he just nailed it, right? So it was only on like the duck a little bit, so I ended up cleaning it off, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna move the duck, and so I took it and I moved it a couple of feet. I'm like, that should be safe right there. I was wrong. It got demolished like the next time I changed it, and I'm like, okay, that thing's going in the garbage. I can't nothing else I can do with the duck. I can't move it far enough away to save its life anymore.
Oh man.
What's up
But
what's up with your wheelbarrow?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Your
supposed to-
your war wagon.
Yeah, the war wagon. So yeah, we sell those, man, and that's what is
It's
one
like
of
a
the
war wagon vehicle too.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of picturing like an A-team type thing with a with a machine gun on the top.
I can, if anybody has that special request, I will mount a machine gun and AR on there, and
There you
guys
go.
can go to town, man. Do
So
what
the
you
war
love,
wagon is a piece of fitness equipment, basically.
Yeah, and I'm sure you remember from Westside, we used to do the wheelbarrows all the time, carry them around the block, and when we're doing that, man, I realized like this is one of the hardest, fucking best full body, just everything workouts I've ever done in my life, man. But nobody's making them.
Yeah, your grip, your traps, your mid and upper back, trying to hold your posture. I remember Louie was
Yeah.
always big about whether he had you do like a yoke walk or whether he had you carry like a wheelbarrow. He was real big on posture and being able to maintain your posture.
Yep. And I'll tell you, for me, when I first started doing them, where I would feel it the most was like my feet, ankles, and hips.
Yeah, a lot of stability, right?
Yeah, and it made me realize like I was weak there.
Mm.
And I guess I probably didn't end up doing enough work on my ankle, being that I ended up tearing those ligaments. But we certainly worked on my hips a lot. Got the glutes, hips a lot stronger.
Right.
Because that's where my limiting factor was when we'd be carrying that wheelbarrow around. And to me, that's the beautiful thing about it is it really exposes what your weakness is. Some people it is their trap, some people it is their grip, some people it's their buys or tries start giving out. Just trying to carry it like that, and it's so we have a lot of attachments for it too. We have D handles, prowler handles. So like the one I guess kind of proprietary thing about it is the handle is replaceable, so you can take a handle out and put a different one in there. I'm actually working on putting a brake on it so that we can add resistance towards pushing it forward.
Oh, cool.
Because what we used to do at Westside was we would have the green wheelbarrow. I'm sure you
Yeah,
remember, right?
yeah.
And
Thing was
the
deadly.
tire would get flat, right?
Yeah.
And so it'd be harder to push forward too. And that's something we don't have yet for mine. Getting that hamstring glute activation a lot more because now you have to push it forward.
Yeah.
And you're not able to really lose your posture as much where you're hunching over to push it forward. You kind of still need to stand up straight to push it forward.
Awesome, man. You got any questions for me?
Good.
I had 1,000, until we're on camera.
Yeah, they leak out of your head.
Yeah. Yeah. God damn.
Son of a.
I mean, well, that's why you're the interviewer. No.
Yeah,
'Cause
probably.
I tried to do a podcast for a while, and I was like, I'd be talking to people like, I'm just not good at it, man. It's not
lose sight of where you're at. Well, it's like anything else. You're not going to start out great at it.
I sucked at it.
Like if you showed me some moves and combinations and stuff, I would be awful at it. It would take.
Well, you said you're going to do some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I'm going to mess around with some stuff.
Yeah.
But,
What about Muay Thai?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Do some man shit.
Why not? Throw some elbows at people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get you some hammers, and that'll bring your
conditioning work up.
Conditioning work up too, and your strength. Do you guys use Tendo units much?
We
or Gym Aware, anything?
Yeah,
like that?
we haven't used anything like that in a long time. We had that in the past, but
I'm curious about that because I've really been looking into the velocity-based training lately. I just bought Brian Mann's book, and I'm really curious as to why it's not more utilized than it is.
Yeah, you would want to look at there's a guy named Greg Knuckles. Greg Knuckles is really into the science of lifting and nutrition. And then there's also Mike Tashir is a power lifter that meticulously like writes down and follows and tracks, the velocity of his lift and all the different things. I think because so many people over the years have had results without it, I think that people are just like, why bother, right? but maybe people are missing out. Maybe they are missing out on some things. Maybe they're not doing something that could be more optimal.
I always wonder because of that, especially in powerlifting, you're always looking for that 1% more, right? You
Yeah.
always got to, you guys, you kind of figure out where your max is going to be, and then you need to get another 2 pounds on that, onto that, or 5 pounds, and if if you're lifting outside of the zone that you're training,
Yeah.
even if it's only a couple reps, and that's a couple wasted reps, right?
Yeah, no, it could make a big difference. But yeah, like I said, for me, like I don't ever use like apps or anything like that. Do you
Yeah.
mess around with stuff like that
I do,
for
yeah.
your training and things
Yeah,
like
I
that?
have well, especially since I've been in my downtime, I've been playing around with a lot of different methods. Like I've done the Conjugate method for a long time, and I even have an app for that. But I've been playing around with like the Chico method, the German volume training, and it's a lot easier for me. There's a few apps that
I know a
just
lot of
make it
people are
so
like
easy.
tracking their sleep and tracking their food.
Oh
and-
yeah, I do all that too. And I do the readiness level stuff. I use the Morpheus with Joel.
Yeah.
I also, still do his Bioforce HRV training, readiness checks in the morning, and then I use my Fitness Pal to track my macros. The sleep, I mean, I sleep pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I started using this product called Som Sleep, SOM. And you could definitely, check that out. I'll get you some of that. I'll send out to you. It's, it's got some melatonin and a couple other things, some L-theanine and stuff.
Yeah, I've
And
heard of that before. So it's just a supplement.
yeah, it's just a supplement that you just down a can before you go to sleep. And
Oh, it's a drink.
yeah, it's a drink. Small drinks. Because I have a problem where I have to get up and pee every night, but that one
Yeah.
actually doesn't really bother me too much.
I
Yeah,
pee all
yeah,
the
right there it is.
I pee all the time throughout the night, and it's annoying, and I kind of, I don't know why, but I like always forget about it. So like I'm thirstier at the end of the day, and I tend to like when I get home and I got time to think about it, I'll plow through some like water because I spent the day
Yeah.
here training or doing whatever, and then the same.
See, I do the opposite. I drink a shit ton in the mornings, and then as it gets later in the day, I start trying to get off of it, so I don't wake up and pee. Even though I
Yeah.
still end up waking up and peeing 2 or 3 times. So yeah. So my before bed kind of stack is I do the Som Sleep, and then I take a little bit of extra magnesium, and then I take a CBD oil. I use Saving Grace CBD oil, which is by far the best product I've ever used. I mean,
Right.
in terms of CBD, it's done more for me than anything else. I've had tons of them sent to me, and that one is just blowing
Oh,
all
that's
the
good.
others out of the water. So I use those, and then the Som Sleep, by the way, use the code Immortal, get 10% off.
Oh, there you go.
So that's my sleep regimen. But yeah, like you said, so I use the MyFitnessPal, and then really the nice thing about the apps for tracking my training is that it's, I can, not bring a notebook or whatever to my training, right? Like to write it down. Like these apps that I have, I can show them to you. I'm right here on my front page.
Cool.
They're real simple. Like I have all these different ones.
Oh, yeah,
the
I see you got a bunch
5x5,
of
the Chico, the German volume, Windler, Texas method, small up. But like I said, I've done the Conjugate method. The Westside system for the vast majority, and then since I've been injured, I've been kind of playing around with other ones, mainly like just to get my upper body, because my lower body right now is really just in limbo, and I'm
Right.
doing a specific rehab for it.
When you're training, I mean, obviously, like everyone wants to get stronger, but is there a real emphasis on it, or is it more important for you just to do the exercises to kind of keep strength? Because, I mean, I guess like you trying for a 405 bench or something is not really the goal.
No, I know exactly what you're getting at, and really, again, I think it's really dependent on the person. I don't like to overgeneralize that, and I take like this is one of the things like I want to do with the team at Muscle Farm, right? Like, so I take a guy, maybe strength is his weakness. Okay, then yeah, he needs to go do some
like
pure
Kevin
strength training.
Kevin Hart in that movie. He's like, "Come on, man, how is weakness my strength?"
Jumanji.
Yeah, Jumanji. Yeah, it shows up on the screen.
Well, look, some people, yeah, that their flexibility is their strength, right? And that maybe that is due to a weakness too. But then even on that, like you have some guys that are more elastic, you have some guys that are more like strong, right? so maybe a guy that's just, stiff strong, maybe like a, more of a grappler type, just a stiff strong guy. Maybe he could use like a Nick Curson type that's going to do tons of plyos and really get his elasticity up and his reactive strength up. Whereas maybe a guy who is more elastic, maybe he could use more of like a Westside system that's going to bring up, his max strength and
Right.
absolute strength, things like that. And I think, in my opinion, I mean, there's not a one size fits all
Right.
for everyone. I think everybody is a huge variable in what people need. It's all about what's going to translate to you getting a better performance. It's not about subscribing to any specific system. And for me, the conjugate system is really we can apply the conjugate principles towards any system, though, right? And so that's really where I think that plays the biggest role. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the West Side system is going to help someone the most, even though I think for the vast majority of people it will, because I mean their principles are so sound.
Yeah.
There's probably like a very few people that it's not really going to help.
Having some downtime and being injured, like how do things work out financially? I mean, that's got to be tough, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you basically do you only get paid when you fight?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm doing a lot of things to try to expand myself. With the equipment business, and I need to start my damn blog. I sell like shirts on the immortalstore.com. Shameless plug. Go there, buy a shirt, and rather than making it GoFundMe, right?
Right,
You go
right,
there
right.
and just
Yeah.
I'm not asking to give me any money, get something in return. I do work with Muscle Farm. They help me out a lot. So so a lot of different things, man.
And in UFC, like you don't get like a salary; you just get paid when you fight. Pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. The nice thing about the UFC is it's a platform that magnifies who you are.
Right.
And fortunately, I'm not a dumb person, and I'm able to get out there. Like I'm doing a lot of seminars now.
Cool.
I'm traveling around, teaching a lot of people as much as I can, and trying to get my name out there as much as I can, and doing things like this. Where
Right.
this might have had a hard time finding the time to do something like this, but now with this injury, I got to find the silver lining. I got to look at the positives and see what I can get out of it. It may end up being a good thing. It doesn't necessarily
Right.
have to be a negative thing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's awesome they have such a positive perspective when I was asking about it yesterday, because I think for a lot of people, being out for like a year would be devastating to them. So
Absolutely.
it's cool you kept a positive spin on it.
Absolutely. And again, that all goes back to my direction. Like I know what I want. Like this is my path and this is what I'm doing, and ultimately, I want this path to inspire others. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm human as anybody. I've had my down days. I mean, there's days where I'm like, fuck, man, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this, right? But I got kids, man, and that's the number one thing in my life. And I need to show them that, look, whatever happens, you keep pushing forward. You get knocked off the horse, you dust yourself off, you get back up on that horse.
Who has the belt in your weight class?
Tyrone Woodley. Well, for instance, like I got knocked out by Cowboys. The only time I've been knocked out in my life. And I've never been that down in my life. I thought I'd go my whole life without getting knocked out. I mean, I've never been knocked out in training. I've never been, seriously even rocked in training. I have a hard head. I'm lucky. I've been taking some serious shots, but that was a time where I was really, really down on myself. But I had to show my kids, like, look, that's not the end of the world. That's not who I am. So I had to come back and get another fight.
It's not necessarily who you are; it's just what you do.
Yeah, and I was, like I've explained to them, 7-year-old kids ask some really tough questions.
Dad,
right?
why'd you get knocked out? You're like,
Yeah.
because the UFC's really hard. It's the best people in the world.
Yeah. I mean, they say stuff like, Dad, why haven't you ever had the belt? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've been trying, buddy. Yeah. So funny stuff like that. But the number one thing I teach you is like, look, when they say they go out and they play a football game or they did some wrestling tournaments last year, the number one thing is attitude and effort. So there's two things you can always control no matter what. It's the attitude that you have going into something, and the effort that you put in. Whether you win or lose has nothing else to do. You can't change anything else. So if I don't have the right attitude and I don't put out the right effort, then I'm being a hypocrite.
Where can people find you? What's your social media?
All over the place, man.
Everywhere. I'm everywhere, bitch.
I am the Immortal. And then Matthew Immortal Brown on Facebook. Everybody knows where to find me. Google me. Google's our God.
There you go. All right, strength
Well,
is
that's
never a
it.
weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later.
I was just getting started.
Damn.